Coming up next, Booking It finishes their discussion on the bronze bow. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Booking It. I am your humble and eloquent host, Cooper Cobbs. We're talking about bronze bow, and over there we've got Isaiah Redsky. How you doing, Isaiah?
Hello. I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Nice. All right, and there we've got. I'm doing fine, Isaiah. Thank you so much for asking. Tanner Lewis. How you doing, Tanner?
Yes, I'm doing great, and I'm back for the second episode.
Oh yes, you're back. That's right. 2 episodes in a row. This is great, everyone. And of course, the much esteemed, the wise, the beneficial, the muscular, all of those attributes, Matthew Killingsworth.
Howdy do, folks.
How come me and Tanner didn't get anything like that?
Okay. You can edit this in then. The most giant of money. the editor of awesomeness.
Editor of awesomeness.
We should get Isaiah a sign that says that, editor of awesomeness.
That was great.
Yeah. And then Tanner, here you can be the guy with the microphone who talks very wisely,
Who says what we say in different wording.
has piles of money just lying around, stuff like that. Yeah, that's it. I'll introduce.
Tanner, show us a
I want
stash.
to see the phone stash.
Yes,
That's pretty good.
all of the cash just appears on my bookshelf too, if you didn't notice.
I want Tanner's bookshelf. It's just, this is some really good banner, but I think like the best banner we've ever had was Call of the Wild Part 2. That was when Matthew had his cowboy boots and Tanner had a cowboy hat, but not really. Then Matthew drank barbecue sauce live on the show.
Yeah.
The episode was pretty bad, but I remember the banter being like exceptionally good.
I remember the intro being exceptionally
Yes.
good as well.
And
Coming up
my,
next, Booking It reads Call the Wild. How woo!
That was great.
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
No, you go ha, and then you stop
go,
for like
ha!
5 seconds, and then you go
No. He goes,
Yeah.
ha!
Yes. Oh man, I have tears in my eyes.
Yeah, we'll go back and listen
I'm
to it.
wiping
It's
tears
funny.
in my eyes. No joke. Okay. So let's get into it. So last week we neglected to do the book in 30 seconds, which
How
Matthew
dare you.
claims to have full knowledge of. So,
We're timing him.
That
But
is not
Matthew-
true.
Timing him.
I said I
he
practiced it.
said he was practicing it. So Matthew, why don't you go do the book in 30 seconds for us?
All right, the book in 30 seconds on the bronze bow, Elizabeth
3,
George Spear.
2, 1, go.
So once there was this dude and his sister and his grandma. They were jamming. His name was Daniel Bar Jammin, and he lived in back in the olden Bible days. Then he decided one day to ditch his grandma and his sister. Went up to a cave, lived with some guys who hated the Romans, tried to kill all the Romans. But then his grandma died, so he had to go back and take care of his sister. And then he met this guy named Jesus. Jesus taught him a lot of good stuff. And then he met some other friends, fell in love with a girl, and then Jesus saved his sister from a demon.
Dang, 25 seconds. Nice.
That was great. They
How long did it take you to come up with the jammin' thing?
it?
I actually just came up with
I
that today.
refuse to
Didn't
believe
practice that one.
Refuse. Okay.
No, I totally believe that.
So at the end of the last episode, we were talking about whether Daniel's sister, Leah, actually had demons. And you guys were all of the mind of that she actually did. So this time, I'm trying to present a defense that she actually did not have demons, and we can kind of respond to that. Let's only touch on this.
See, last episode he said he didn't want this
I
to
know.
get heated. Now he wants it to get
Okay.
heated.
Let me just do a brief thing, and then I'll let you guys respond, then we'll move on. Okay. So I think that
Epic.
she didn't actually have demons. Like Matthew said, I think he mentioned it in the other episode. People back then readily accept the fact that they were demons and angels, kind of like we do, but not a cultural thing anymore. So I think that they use this term a little more loosely, and we even still do as Christians today. Like we say, oh, he's facing his demons, or like in a movie, he's fighting his own demons, or something like that. We don't actually mean they have actual demons. We do mean they have struggles, and the demon is like the metaphor for them, which is what I kind of think that Leah did for a couple of reasons. The first of which, the demon didn't exactly control her, didn't possess. You said she was demon possessed. Well, the demon didn't exactly possess her. It prevented her from doing a lot of stuff, but she was most of the time, in her right mind, if she was not well in her right mind. And she also responded well to Jesus. A lot of the times when Jesus was in front of a demon, he would like throw himself down, or the demon would do something wild. But Leah loved hearing about Jesus. In fact, it made her even better, which I think that the demon would not have done. So those are my reasons.
I have two things to respond to that. Number one, I'm completely open to that idea. I think that could definitely possibly be what was true. But then the second thing I wanted to say is that I don't think that's really the point. Like, it's a fun little argument to have, but I think the point is just that either way, whichever one of those it was, if it was actual demons that were in her, or it was just like problems she was facing, or it was demons causing problems she was facing, which could also be an argument. I think any of those options, it could have, or I mean, not could have, any of those options, it was Jesus who saved her from whatever she was going through, and he can save anyone from whatever they're going through. So I think that's the point of the story, and I think that's what
I can agree with
is
that.
supposed to be focused on.
Sure. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Samson. So, for sure, we kind of, again, neglected the word of the episode to mention it last time. So Samson's like this big dude that Daniel and his band of outlaws that he worked with kind of captured, and Samson kind of becomes, I guess, indebted to Daniel because he like removed his chains or whatever. And so Samson just kind of follows Daniel around everywhere. So I wanted to get your thoughts on, like, what is the purpose of Samson? Why is he there? And just kind of your thoughts on Samson.
I mean, I instantly thought of him as basically just like a bodyguard guy. Basically, like even before he was following him around or anything, whenever you first meet him, like, dude, that guy would make a perfect bodyguard. Like, that's what I imagine him as, like a big dude, big strong dude, and wearing a suit and sunglasses and all that.
Oh
yeah. But then whenever he started following,
like on Lilo and Stitch, Bubbles.
And then whenever he started following him around, though, that's basically whenever he basically was his bodyguard. Like, he was indebted to him, and he followed him around and all that, and was there to like protect him or help him with whatever.
I don't know if I would say indebted, though. It was just, I mean, you can say that, but it was more just like appreciated and respected him so much that he was willing to do it for him. Gratefulness was grateful for what Daniel had already done for him.
So Tanner, what do you think of him as like a plot device, I guess, in the story? Like, how was he used? Did you like that kind of thing?
I don't know. It kind of gave because Daniel never really had like a personal connection with anyone until Samson came around, right? Daniel never really identified with anyone other than Rosh, but Rosh wasn't really Rosh wasn't really like, he didn't have any it sounds weird to say this, like emotional attachment. Like, he didn't like love Rosh as a person. He loved what Rosh stood for, but he was not really emotionally attached to anyone other than Samson for the longest time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I love how much problems we're having with pronunciation of these characters.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's Rosh.
Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
I don't know. We have to argue about it.
Potato.
I like Samson, especially at the end. I guess we can kind of talk about it now. One of the end scenes where Daniel and his kind of group of guys who are against the Romans are like fighting the Romans because they're trying to get trying to get Joel back because Joel was captured by the Romans. And then Samson like defends them, and in the process is killed. And Daniel is like, why, And then this leads up to probably, I think, my favorite scene, and Matthew said the end scene was his, but where Daniel goes and has a one-on-one conversation with Jesus. And he's like, I'm going to avenge Samson. And then he's like, Jesus said, he provided you like with the most selfless thing possible. Like, he died for you. Can you avenge that with blood? And I thought that was just incredible.
Bodyguard.
And also that Jesus seemed to provide another interesting thing. Like, in the Bible it says a man with wealth it's harder for him to enter the kingdom of heaven than a camel through the eye of a needle. And then Jesus is, Daniel says, I would give up everything to follow you, just to take down the Romans. And he says, no, you don't need to give away everything you have in terms of possessions. You need to give up your hate, which I thought was, another great thing.
Powerful.
What do you guys think about that?
Yeah. Jesus is perfect. We've never been able to say that about a character in a book before, but Jesus is perfect.
Man, I'm just thinking
We're just like all staring off at a wall. Just like thinking about it.
Because Daniel comes in there and he's like, I've sworn an oath, though. I swore an oath for God's victory.
Yeah.
And Jesus goes, that's not an oath of hate.
Yeah, it's like, give it all up. Give all your hate. Give all your burdens. Give all your commitments. Just like, let me take care of it. That's what he's constantly saying in the Bible, and you hear this in pretty much most sermons, is just like let Jesus take it all. And that's how you're saved. You can't let him take part of it. You can't let him take some things. You can't just follow him, but like everyone's following him for different reasons and stuff like that. You have to let him take it all.
You have to give up everything that you have, and sometimes that's not just your possessions. You have to give up your sins. You have to give up your hatred, and that's just something that I thought was really well presented. Like a lot of the Jews were in poverty, but they wanted to take down the Romans. They hated the Romans, and so Jesus says, "Love your enemy." And that, I think today we think more of the the rich young man than of the love your enemies. Sometimes I think because
right.
I guess in our generation in America, we have more money than any other generation in the world ever. And sometimes we come attached to that, but then back then they didn't have a lot of possessions. They would readily give up anything they had just for freedom, for for the death of the Romans. And then he just says, actually, you have to give up that. You have to love your enemy, and that is how you get the kingdom of heaven, to love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, and accept me as your savior.
Yeah, so like Daniel's sin was not like having too much and like loathing and envying for more. He was not like just greedy and wanting more and more and more and more, which is our American tendency in this generation now. We just want more money. We just want to keep accumulating and accumulating and accumulating, like the rich young ruler. Now, that wasn't their problem back then. Their problem was like, not saying that it isn't a problem today. It just was more larger tendency back then. They would easily give up everything. They, like Pharisees, they'd come in and they'd put like loads and loads of cash down and into the temple and everything. But they always they never really had an attachment to all of that stuff. They had an attachment to what people thought of them, their thoughts about others. Like Daniel. Daniel's sin problem was hate. He hated the Romans. His problem was not greed and wanting more and more and more and not caring about relationships with people because of that greed. His problem was the fact that he hated the Romans and that he couldn't love them. And I guess that's what impacted me the most about what Jesus said to him. Because Jesus says to the rich young ruler, lay down everything you have, because you say that you're perfect, but you have not given up everything you had. His problem was greed. Daniel's problem is not that I just want to lay everything down. Like, just let me lay everything down and come and fight with you against the Romans. And Jesus is like, no. You've got to give up that hate. Not the possessions, the hate. Mm-hmm. So everything, we all have our sin problems, and that's why we can't exchange our sin problem of hate for giving things up. Or the rich young ruler for being perfect.
Right. And I saw a lot in this book of Jesus teaching people how to be satisfied, because with all sin, there is dissatisfaction, because all sin is being apart from God, and there's always going to be that hole in our heart that we can't fill without God in it, to make us perfect. And so, with sin and without, having Jesus in your heart, you're never going to be satisfied. And once Jesus finally got to them, then they found true satisfaction in him.
Yeah. Isaiah? Editor of Awesomeness, your thoughts?
I just think like the whole theme of the book, or not like the whole thing, but one of the main parts of the book was like what Tanner was saying about how like it doesn't matter what you have in the world or whatever. Like for him in his book, it was to like set aside your hate, your anger, like that. And it just reminds me of like you were saying, Cooper, I think in the first episode, Jesus was saying like to love your enemies, and it's also saying, I can't remember how this first went, but it's like if you choose to hate your brother or whatever like that, what more will Jesus do to you, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like that's what that reminded me of, and that was just like a very key section to the book, and like, yeah, it was a very important part, and
yeah.
The way to gain anything that matters is to give up everything that doesn't.
Whoa.
Yes, I did just make that up.
Sure?
Looks like everything you said at the beginning about Matthew is correct, Cooper.
Yeah. So, let's talk a little bit about Daniel's sister and then her relationship with the Roman soldier. So obviously Leah is kind of, I guess, like we said, filled with demons, whether real or metaphorical. She had some problems, we'll say that, and a lot of the stuff that made her like come out of her shell was the Roman soldier Marcus, who like actually loved her and like gave her gifts and stuff like that. And then Daniel, when he finds this out, is like enraged, and then he like throws the fruit that Marcus had given her like against the wall, and then he like scares Leah and almost makes her die. What do you guys think about that?
He's just blinded by hate. He can't. He doesn't want to see the Romans do anything good, because then he'll feel guilty about hating them. Because he's already. I mean, anyone can think of this, obviously, on a lesser scale. Something in your life that you've like. Something has happened to you, and you felt like you got something from that. Like it was an excuse to hate something or someone or something like that. And but then when they do something nice again, then you're like, dang it, now I can't. Now I can't have the same feelings towards them as I did. I don't know. I think it was kind of like that. And also, he just didn't really want to see them do anything good, because he just thought of them as such terrible monsters when not necessarily all of them were.
Right. Tanner, Isaiah?
I mean, I think it was just like Matthew was saying, like he was blinded by his hate or whatever, but like I think how he started like hating it is he only saw the bad side, or only, like Matthew also said, like chose to see the bad side of the Romans. Like he didn't care if they did anything good, he just ignored it, didn't look at it, whatever. Just because he only wanted to hate them. And I mean, I think that ended up it definitely ended up hurting him and his sister a little bit with that, because like if he would have just chosen to see like that Marcus is actually doing like a good thing and all that, and not all of them were bad, then I don't know, it would have ended up a lot different, I guess.
Right. And then it's also during this time where he's kind of having fights with Rosh over this. He's like, Rosh wanted to do stuff, and he's like, no. And I think after the final like battle scene, he's like, is this worth it? Is this really worth it? We've lost Samson, we've lost Nathan. Is this really worth this? Hate really the option he has is talk with Jesus, and he's not so certain. And then Leah is just dying, and his only option is Jesus, really. You guys gonna say anything on that?
I agree with you.
Yeah. Okay, so at the end, Jesus comes in and he heals Leah, and then Daniel asked Marcus into his house because Marcus had asked to see her, and Daniel like flat out refused and was angry. So at the end, Daniel kind of gave up his hate, huh?
Yep. He finally chose to see the good in them and not just all the evil or bad or whatever.
Yeah, he kind of gave up his hate finally, just to kind of, like you said, see the goodness, but also, just, I guess accepting Jesus as, the true Savior. Like, in order to get Jesus, he had to let go of his hate.
Yeah, Jesus taught him that he can't fill his dissatisfaction or the hole in his heart with hate or anger or disliking of the Romans, or even if he did defeat all the Romans in the whole world and had freed Israel, then he still wouldn't be satisfied. And Jesus finally taught him that.
Right.
So he finally realized that there's no point in hating them any longer because he was already satisfied in Jesus. And as long as he had Jesus, any situation he was in on this world was going to be a lot better.
Yeah, that's right. It's kind of like what Jesus said, like your oath for God's victory. It wasn't an oath of hate. Just like kind of I think Tanner said in the last episode, like you just need to be pointed in the right direction, So Jesus kind of finally did that at the end there.
Yeah, he was just hating the wrong thing. He was hating the Romans. He wasn't hating the sin that the Romans were, not really that even the Romans were committing. Like most of those soldiers didn't even want to be there. They were drafted, like Marcus. But he was not hating the right thing. He wasn't hating the sin that was burdened with the world. He was hating the people. Don't hate the people, hate the sin. That's something that my mom says. But
yeah, I say that too.
Yeah, his hate was wrong, but it was wrong because he was hating the people, not the sin that was influencing the people. He was hating the people because of the sin that they had, but he was pointing the people directly to the sin. He was assuming that all of the sin was that they were inherently bad because they were sinners, and that is absolutely true. But he was still pointing all of his hatred at them, not at the sin. He wasn't even caring really about the sin. He was caring about the people that were doing the sin. Like when he shoved Marcus out of his house and threw the fruit at him, he was hating the person, not the sin that was influencing the person.
And influencing Daniel. I want to bring this up real quick, though. The Bible does say to love your enemies, and so does that mean that you are supposed to hate sin? Because, sin is caused by Satan, who is our enemy.
What the heck? Yeah, no, you're supposed to hate sin. Like, you're supposed to hate evil, right? Like Tanner said, hate the sin, love the sinner, right? So, love your enemy, but hate the sin they're committing, right?
Yes.
So, Satan is sin. He is evil. So, I think it's, okay to hate Satan.
Yeah, here's what you can think. Here's what you can think about this for Matthew. This is one of my favorite analogies ever when it comes to sin and God. So think about this. You just have this perfect square, and that square is everything. It is perfect. There is no flaw with this square. Cut a hole out of that square and take it out. Now you have this emptiness in the square. That's sin. Sin is the absence of God. It is not the opposite of God. It is the absence of God, which is why you are allowed to, not even allowed to, you are supposed to hate sin because it is the absence of everything good and everything perfect and everything righteous.
Well, yeah, and if God is perfect and sin isn't, it's like sin is basically the opposite of perfect, is complete, opposite of it's corrupt and all that. Then if you don't hate it, then would you be okay doing it sometimes if you don't hate it? You have to hate it to not be okay doing it, or sorry, it doesn't really make sense, but if you hate it, you'll try your best not to ever do it. But if you don't hate it, you just think, oh, it's not okay to do, but it's not the worst or anything. You might end up doing it more than you should, or not. You shouldn't do it at all, but more than you would if you actually hated it and never wanted to do it.
So let's kind of, I guess, summarize our thoughts and give our final thoughts on the bronze bow. Who wants to go first? Guess I'll go first. Okay. Okay. I think Bronze Bow is obviously a great book, a great novel way to kind of show what loving your enemy actually looks like and letting go of your hate looks like, and just realizing that you have to lay everything before Jesus and in order to commit to him. And just a very emotional book, and just a masterpiece of, again, show what it looks like to love your neighbors. Is kind of what I think. Go ahead, Isaiah.
It was a really good book. Like I said before, I thought it was a really good way to explain more about and like preach the gospel again, but through someone else's eyes, like another perspective. And it was just a really good book, like to show Daniel, like, or like I really liked how it like showed Daniel's change. He went from like completely hating the enemy, wanting to kill them all, fight them, destroy them, to going to talk to Jesus and learning from him, and then starting to end up realizing that he was wrong in hating the enemy. He should hate the, like we just said, the sin, not the sinner. And that some of the enemy, like the Romans, didn't even want to be there. They were drafted. They were forced to do what they did. And it's just like a really cool story. Like, yeah, just showing all that.
Tanner and Matthew.
Yeah, I really loved this book. Like, as I was saying in the last episode when I was giving my opening thoughts, I love this this book. Almost said episode again. That was going to be embarrassing. I love this book because it really gave me the view of what it was like inside the Bible, like looking around in someone else's shoes of what it was like, because you never really think about in the Bible how truly bad the Roman rule was. You're usually just focusing on Jesus, which is not bad at all, but it was very interesting to see another dynamic, another view of of what the Romans were like. And I really love that Spear was able to use that book and to use this to truly just, I think the point of this book was to reach others with the good news of Christ. Like, lay down your hate, lay down all of your burdens, cast it all down, and go and follow him, which is exactly what Daniel did. And I'm really grateful to Spear for using the talents that God has given her in her writing to share the love of Christ.
Nice. All right, Matthew, real fast, we'll do some donor shout-outs.
Right. I liked it. I liked all the same things that y'all were saying, but I liked it how it showed Jesus in his, how do you say this, personalness, how personal he was to every single person. And he didn't just care about, like, he didn't just, like, send a flyer to every single person in the world. He, like, walked into people's houses, personally fixed their personal problems. And obviously you see way more of that in the Bible. But I loved just seeing Elizabeth George Spear's imagination of that, and her story about Daniel Bar-Jamin and his family and how Jesus really saved them. And I'm also really glad that we got to talk about this on the pod, because like, we are a Christian podcast, and we don't always like talk about God like a ton in our episodes. Almost not as much as we would like. Sure. But this one really opened it up and really made it easy in a lot of stuff that was very clear. So I'm glad we got to talk about that.
For sure. All right, now time for some donor shout-outs. Mm-hmm. All right, Tanner, what would someone do if they wanted a donor shout-out on our podcast?
They would go to patreon.com/bookinit and give any of our 5 tiers. We have 5, right?
Just $5 or more.
$5 or higher tiers.
See, right, guys, this is how much I know.
The link in the description below. All right. Okay.
Very easy.
Last week's shtick wasn't very good, so
yeah, it was a little different. So, don't hate us for that. It's Cooper's idea.
Man.
Let's see if we have enough characters in the book. We'll see if we have enough characters. Okay.
No, we're not doing that.
Okay.
Dude,
hold on, we can be creative.
Completely random. I'm going to say the donor. You guys say what fruit you think they most represent, okay?
No, we're not doing that. No, I got one.
Okay, Isaiah.
Yes,
Isaiah.
Let's do it. I want to do that. Yes, let's do it. Hold on, we're having a vote. Tanner, you want to do it?
Okay. So, Isaiah, Nana.
You will be a peach.
Nah, she loves peaches. All right. My grandparents, Grandpappy and Wayla. Matthew.
So dragon fruits.
Ooh.
Nice. All right, Tanner, Isaiah's grandparents.
Pineapple.
Nice. All right, Isaiah.
Isaiah just has to say after every single one.
Wait, what do I get?
Your parents, Mr. Mike and Miss Laura.
I'll give them bananas.
Bananas, nice. All right, Matthew, Isaiah's Uncle Sebi.
Isaiah's Uncle Sebi. I don't know why we always repeat them after. Papaya.
Ooh.
I think you're the only one who does that. All right, nice.
Why do you say ooh or after every single one, Isaiah?
Isaiah's Aunt Jenny and Uncle Sam.
Oranges.
Isaiah, oh nice. Isaiah, your cousins. I'm trying to do donor shoutouts here. Isaiah, your cousins Moses and Zara.
Give them raspberries.
You did it too early, Matthew. Too early. All right, Matthew, get your act together. Chris.
Sorry. Chris Hagedorn. Strawberries.
Ooh,
what a really hot last name. All right, now make sure you check out his podcast, Like Lightning. All right. Thank you so much for donating. Make sure you click on the link in the description that Isaiah said. We'd really appreciate it. If you want to, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're going to be posting some sound bites from this episode over the next couple of weeks.
Which, if you listen to this episode, you don't really need to listen to the sound bites.
But I think it's fun to go back.
The sound bites, aren't they only going to be on YouTube?
Yeah, they're only going to be on YouTube, so make sure you subscribe. And check out our other podcast, The Screening, where we talk about movies. And
do it. And enough with the advertisements.
Okay.
Right.
One more thing. Make sure you rate and review us and tell your friends.
I said enough.
And until next time.
Nobody likes to listen to that. Keep on booking it.